What's up everybody, it's Parker with BI Elite. As you may have heard, the DA100 exam is out of beta. It is finally fully released, so you can go ahead and sign up to take that test and attempt to get your Data Analyst Associate certification. This video that you're about to watch is actually directly from my DA100 certification exam training course. This video covers how you can apply a few tricks when designing your Power BI report in order to make your report more accessible for all users, especially those with visual impairments. Keep in mind that this is one topic out of the 100 topics that we cover throughout the training course materials. So if you like this video, make sure you check out the full DA100 training course. The link is down in the description. Without further ado, let's get into the video. Now we're going to make this report a little more accessible for all users. Some users might have some disabilities that make viewing the report a little bit more challenging. So we're going to go through a few steps that will allow us to present the data in a much nicer way that everyone will be able to consume. So the first tip that I can give you is that we are going to want to make our visualizations pop. We want to give them a background so that our actual visuals have something to be contrasted against. We can do that with a nice easy shape. So if we go to Insert and Rectangle, let's throw this into the top here, and we can go ahead and move this to the back. So we see it sitting on top. Let's go ahead and move this all the way to the back so that everything's sitting on top of it. So we also don't need a border around it, so we're going to take away the line weight down to 0. That looks good. So we have a nice gray color. I'm going to give that a little bit of transparency, maybe 40%, so it can be a little bit more subtle. And now we have a nice background up top for our slicer panel and our title. I'm going to go ahead and minimize some things just so we can make it stand out a little bit more. We are going to give this title now a blue background color to give that a little bit more color to it. So we'll use this blue color. We'll change our font to be white. So we'll highlight that, change it to a white font so that it can contrast a little bit better. Looks nice. We're actually going to minimize this shape down just a little bit, and we're going to make these slicers transparent on the background. So let's go to background and give them 100% transparency. So let's also change the transparency for the second slicer. Let's go ahead and just turn that background off, same as making it transparent, and move this down just a little bit. Size it a little bit better. And we can make that shape just a little bit smaller. We can also make our text a little bit bigger if we'd like to. We could do that by clicking on a slicer. Maybe the slicer header can have a larger text size, and maybe the value can as well. So let's go to items and make that text size a little bit bigger. And we can do that as well for our date slicer. If we want, we can just click on one of our slicers, go to Home, click on the Format Painter, and paste that onto this other slicer, and it will apply most of the changes if they do overlap. I do see that we still need to change some things here. For example, our date slicer has something called date inputs, which actually is different than the items from the previous slicer. So now we have these two slicers sized a little bit better. So that's the first trick, to allow your users to be able to see the contrast between the visuals and the background to help them pop out a little bit more. Next, we want to implement color gradients when possible. For example, all of these bars are the same blue color, so they're not going to stand out very well. Let's go ahead and apply some conditional formatting to change up those colors a little bit. So let's go to Formatting and Data Colors. Let's click on the 3 dots right next to default color and conditional formatting. So let's go ahead and set a color scale based on the count of orders. So let's set it up with a color scale. Let's stick with one of these. Let's go ahead and go from this dark purple. Let's click on, or the lightest purple, to the darkest purple. Let's click OK. And now we have more of a color scale. If we want this to stand out a little bit, since those purples are looking a little bit like black, let's go ahead and take a similar approach. Let's use our blue, our light blue, all the way to the darker blue. Let's go ahead and click OK. That looks pretty good now. So they can get an idea of shading as well, instead of just the bar length, since they were all the same blue color. Next, we can look into the tab order of these visuals. So a lot of people might tab through your report instead of clicking around. For example, if I were to click on, let's say, this first visual up here and I were to tab over, we see that the next visual that's tabbed to is this other slicer, followed by this slicer, and then we go through the visuals. That's not necessarily the flow that I would like for this report. I would like users to tab individually over my slicers, and then let's start with this visual and then go to this one and then this one. So we can do that in the view. Let's go to the selection pane. So we see our layer order, and we've used that before by dragging and dropping items, but we do have a tab order tab as well. And we see that our first tab order will be this shape in the background. It's actually the shape, that's totally fine. Then our text box, that's good. And then this slicer, and then this slicer. So we actually want to switch those. So now it'll be our text box, and then that middle slicer, and that far slicer. Then count of orders, we actually want it to be this one. So let's move that forward. So we have this visual, which we'll make a little bit bigger here. So we have this visual, and then the bar chart, and then the donut chart. So that's the proper tab order that we would like. So keep in mind that a lot of users might be using tabs instead of a mouse, so that we can set this tab order to make it accessible for them. And the next trick, which is very important, is to apply a theme that might be usable for all users. And if you want a safe bet, you can come down to these options here and select one of these, like this one right here, colorblind safe. Let's go ahead and click that. And we see we have now changed our report to be colorblind safe. We do need to make some modifications to ours. For example, we can change our font color of this color to be maybe darker gray. Let's see how that stands out. Actually, I'm going to change that to black just to make sure it truly stands out. So let's go with black. So this theme has applied a colorblind safe coloring to our report, and we do see now that our blue stands out. Let's go ahead and change this conditional formatting just a little bit. Let's go ahead and go to data colors one more time and change that color scale to be a little bit more in line. For example, like this one will fit better with the theme that we just applied. Let's click OK. So now we have a report that fully follows that colorblind safe theme. So keep this in mind when developing a report. There are users of different capabilities that will be using your report, so make sure you keep everyone in mind when designing that report interface. Again, if you like this video and want to check out some of the other topics covered in the DA100 certification exam prep course, check out training.bielite.com. The link will be down in the description. Go ahead and start up your free 7-day trial so you can start learning to pass your DA100 exam.